How you doing?
I'm good. I'm anticipating the 2:30 press conference, as I'm sure we all are.
Yes, we are. So we're in a state of in betweenness here. So
Oh, you're going to ask
I'll,
me to speculate on what he's going to do.
actually, do you want to start with that?
Oh, gee. Oh, well, let's run through the numbers and then you can tell me what you think you should do. How's that?
Okay, let's go. So
Well, we know our daily numbers today. We're up again. We were 111 yesterday. We're 146 today.
okay,
301 in Brampton. So literally 2 to 1. Literally 2 to 1 with Brampton. Overall, Peel Region came in at 362 today. Excuse me, 462 today.
yeah,
But when you look at that on averages, so we've been doing kind of a weekly average. What's the number on a weekly average? So a weekly average of new cases, 121. 2 weeks ago, that number was 55.
okay,
So that's the difference. And in Brampton, it's 270. In Peel Region, it's been 408 average daily cases. So that's a lot. And when you look at things as we should, which is on a per 100,000 basis, because that way we can, it's apples to apples rather than apples to oranges with other regions. So
yeah,
on a per 100,000 basis, Peel is 120 cases per 100,000. Mississauga 74, Brampton's 182, and and to compare that, Toronto is 88.
okay,
So it's Mississauga at 74, then Toronto at 88, um, Brampton at 182, and then when you average Mississauga, Brampton, we're a little bit bigger, comes down a little bit. It's 119, I'll call it 192. And the positivity rates are very high, as you know. So it's 10% in Peel, but then in fairness, I think I've said this to you before, that's because you're asking people who are symptomatic to go get tested. So of
yeah.
course your rates are going to be a little higher. Mississauga, it's 7%, Brampton 13, and Caledon's pretty high too. So for the number of people that go get tested, it's 9%. And you compare that to Toronto, it's 6% in Toronto, right? It's supposed to be 4 or under.
So let me ask you this: the positivity rate is 10.1% in Peel, double of Toronto, and actually higher than most places that are in lockdown in Europe. Do you think a further lockdown is coming to Peel region? And I hate to say Mississauga as well.
I have to be honest with you, and I think so. I mean, it is the responsible thing to do at this point. We haven't seen numbers like this since the springtime when we were in the height of the first wave, and it doesn't seem to be turning around. Do you recall when the province introduced their modeling and we saw what the source of the spread was and the new categories were created, the framework was created, the green, yellow, orange, red, and we were very hopeful at that time that we would move into the orange zone, and that's when we were averaging 55 cases per day, and that was 2 weeks ago. And look what has changed in just 2 weeks, how quickly things can turn. And now our hospitals are at capacity. Trillium Hospital is at capacity. William Osler, you couldn't go there today. You would be asked to go elsewhere. They are transporting patients out of William Osler Hospital. They've got over 100 and I think it's 115 beds just for COVID patients that have to be separated and isolated. So
Oh.
that's the problem, plus the number of people they have in the ICU. So things can turn so quickly. And for us, the 55 went up to 85 with a workplace outbreak. That comes home, it becomes a household outbreak. Everyone becomes infected in the household. Somebody goes out and passes it on to someone else. And suddenly, from 55 cases a day, I'm at 121 cases a day. That's how quickly that turned in 2 weeks. So I don't see it changing. And my worry is, when we have those uh, high holidays, big events where people want to gather with their extended families, that just makes matters worse. So certainly we knew in September, the opening up of schools, the opening up of businesses, et cetera, were going to drive numbers. And we saw that. And then they kind of stabilized. They were growing, but they were steady. And then Thanksgiving, exponential growth, right? And now we're seeing the effects also of Halloween parties. And you're going to ask me at some point, but I know you know that there were a couple of lounges that were closed for people gathering, excessive numbers and not safely distanced, etc. And one late night speakeasy was closed down in Mississauga. So you know, especially young people aren't taking the rules seriously anymore. And now we have Diwali this weekend.
Yeah. We have a speakeasy in Mississauga. I had no idea.
I'm not sure if it's a legitimate one. I think it was
Okay.
a commercial industrial unit that was converted, and
Uh,
maybe you had to have the secret handshake or the secret buzzword to get let in. I don't know. This is beyond. I should ask our bylaw. How do they know? How they probably can't tell me. But I think there's a password or code word you need to get in or something. I don't know. It's just like what people are doing to avoid doing the right thing.
well,
Frankly, let's be on the honor system now, folks.
let me ask about the color-coded framework that Doug Ford
Mm-hmm.
and Premier in the province announced last week.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I personally think it's very confusing, and I get messages, yeah, like dozens a day asking me, hey, how long is this going to last? What does it mean? Let me ask you, this red alert system, or this, we're in the red system right now, or the
Red zone. Mm-hmm.
red zone. It says in the bylaw that it's 28 days after it starts. Is that correct?
So we should be in that for 28 days before we can move to the orange
Oh,
zone. That's what they mean, I think.
okay.
So for instance, what the number I look at is the one that I know is of interest to our residents and our small businesses. For instance, in the orange zone, we allowed indoor dining up to a
Yeah.
maximum capacity of 50. And believe me, when I thought we were going into the orange zone, I did have restaurateurs contact me and say, only 50? We can serve 500 people. How about 100? Who decided it would be 50? And then, of course, we were moved into red, which was actually less restrictive, let's call it that, less
Yeah.
restrictive than we had been in the 28-day lockdown when we were in phase 2.5, because there was no indoor dining allowed, and now we're allowing it for 10 patrons in a restaurant, and gyms are a permitted class of 10 if you register and you're stay in the same cohort, or if you're working out individually. So that is more than was permitted when we were in phase 2.5 2 weeks ago. And as a result, Dr. Lowe felt very strongly he needed to add counterbalancing measures, right? Counterbalancing measures so that if we're going to open up restaurants and gyms, because we've been saying they're not the source of the spread, even though they're internationally recognized as a high risk situation, because you're sitting for a long period of time opposite someone who may or may not be your family member. And I am kind of glad to hear that that was checked, probably because they know who you are. They don't always. And, who were you with? Were you with your son?
No, I was with
a colleague?
Rick. He owns Rick's Good Eats.
Or you were with a call? Okay.
Yeah, I was with a friend. But I was
You
being
were with
honest.
a friend. No, you
I
were
was
being
being
honest. Well,
Yeah.
look, even if you were with your son, what if they challenged your address? Well, here's my child, right?
Yeah.
So, that is a strong guideline, but it's not enforceable. I mean, the restaurants can try to implement it. But the reality is, if you're sitting across from a stranger, they could be carrying the virus and you don't know it. And the opportunity for transmission is so much greater because you're facing them for a long period of time without a face covering. So you can share it or they can share it. I remember when diseases and conditions were spread by carriers. Now we call them they're asymptomatic, which is true. They don't have visible signs of the virus. However, they're carrying it, right? That is the point. And maybe we need to continue to say that so people understand that they don't have symptoms, but they still have the virus, and just because it didn't afflict them, it can you, and you could catch it from them. So
True. What do you have to say to the restaurants that are saying that it's actually a safer spot to actually dine and drink and eat than going back home and having a party and having people over with no COVID-19 protocols?
So I'm not supposed to speculate about things like that, but I can understand their point. When restaurants were closed, what was happening? People were getting together in small gatherings, in social settings, in private settings. We moved that meeting, that dinner party that would have been more safely controlled in a restaurant, to a private setting or to a boardroom. The boardroom meeting would have been at a restaurant where everyone would have worn a face covering, but now it's in a boardroom and food was brought in. Now, I'm speculating, this is anecdotal, and they're quite right. And that's why we were fighting to keep them open. However, now that we're potentially going into a lockdown situation, I mean, we have to do everything we can to shut down the spread of the virus. And it has been acknowledged worldwide that sitting in a restaurant opposite someone, or working out in a gym, we both work out, and you have the opportunity through sweating and spreading droplets in the gym. It is a high risk source of transmission. There is no doubt about it. If you're going to sit opposite people that aren't in your household for an hour or two in a restaurant, that is a high risk for transmission, let's be honest. And so what they're trying to address is any high risk scenario. And unfortunately, restaurants and gyms fall into those categories, notwithstanding they weren't the source of our spread in Mississauga. I mean, not the sole source. They did a little bit. I had 3.3% restaurants, 3.4% gyms. Toronto, 27%. So almost a third of their spread was happening in restaurants, bars, pubs, clubs, and gyms on top of that. But it's different, right? There's more family dining here, and people going out for dinners is socializing. So Dr. Lowe's new guidelines are stop socializing. Yeah. No wedding receptions. You can have your wedding ceremony in your place of worship, 30% capacity, but no reception. He said, just put it off for now. Put it off until at least January, and all other forms of celebrations as well. So no socializing, no celebrations. So the birthday parties, anniversaries, engagement parties, retirement parties, etc. Let's put those off for now. He said at least 2 weeks, but you and I both know it's going to be longer than that. So put off socializing, put off celebrations, wedding receptions not till after January. The banquet halls have been closed through the emergency orders given to the chair of the Region of Peel. And then in places of worship, we fall back to the provincial framework of 30% capacity. Dr. Lowe's strict recommendation, because it's a guideline, it's not enforceable, but his recommendation is that services go online. Wherever they can, go online. And if you have to go to your place of worship, please limit it to 50. That is not enforceable. The provincial framework allows for 30%. And let me say that I also know that all the places of worship that I have visited, and I do go to Mass Count Catholic, and I've been to other places of worship, they have very strict protocols in place, as do the restaurants, okay? I understand that. But it's just he felt that he wanted to counterbalance the measures that were in place in the red zone, red criteria that we were put in as part of the framework. Now, Mississauga on our own, close to the orange framework. We were in the orange framework when we were moved into the red, but because it's Peel Region, we moved into the red. I'll say we're exceeding them today, based on our case numbers. Up to 40, I think up to 40 cases per 100,000. And we were 40 per 100,000 when we moved into red. But we are now how much higher? We're 74 per 100,000, and we have a 7.2% in positivity rate. And I think it's up to 4.5 in the orange zone.
So just talking about private gatherings, Dr. Lowe did mention that he wants to kind of ban private gatherings at private homes. How's this going to be enforced?
So, we understand that this is challenging to enforce. Certainly, if where you reside, if you're in a high rise, you're hearing a lot of noise down the hall, call 311. If you live on a street and there are a lot of cars parked in front of a house, call 311. I know neighbors don't like to call on neighbors. We understand that, but it's for the good of everyone. It's for the benefit of the entire community. So there are many rules, regulations in place that aren't enforceable. Let's be honest, bike helmets, smoking 10 meters from a building, what else? Seatbelts, tough to enforce, walking your dog on a leash. All these things are difficult to enforce, and we recognize that, but we pass them because they're the right thing to do. And people are on the honor system. Let's be honest. People are on the honor system. We tell you this is the right thing. Please do the right thing. And I think most people do want to do the right thing. Sure. And they are rule followers. Mississaugans do follow rules. I mean, of course, there are always exemptions everywhere. People who the rules don't apply to them. But for the most part, Mississaugans, our business community and our residents, we're rule followers. And we could see we were doing very, very well under COVID. But once this thing turns, it grows exponentially. It almost becomes out of control.
I've seen you on a lot of media outlets this week, and one of the comments that you said garnered a lot of attention in regards to other media outlets. You mentioned that you've heard rumblings that the schools' Christmas vacations might be starting earlier or something like that. What have you heard anything more about that, or you want to?
I didn't realize that was going to be the cause of such controversy, but apparently it was. So we have a Monday call, the GTHA mayors, and you know, we speculate about what else could be coming down. Will there be a lockdown? Will schools close? And so I think it was one of the chairs of one of the other regions that had said he had heard rumblings that it gave them an opportunity to close down schools early, clean them down, and take a pause. I have no official update. I got no nudge, nudge, wink, wink from anyone. This is what we're doing. It was just the musings of the mayors and chairs. But we were speculating as to what was possible given the exponential growth in numbers. And, you know, I didn't realize speculating would lead to, you know, me being the source of rumors. But I mean, I think we all concede it's a very realistic possibility when you look at what are the tools available to the premier. Lockdown is one, going back to what had happened in the spring, in March and in April, until things started to loosen up May, June. And then, you know, there's no question the schools are doing it right. And if I'm looking at all possible tools he had available, you know, to suppress the source of the spread. And so perhaps I spoke out of turn. I didn't get any inside information. We were just speculating on what tools in the toolbox were available to the premier should he have to take more drastic measures.
Okay. Yeah, Utah's on Zoom with his buddies every day, though. So.
Of course. Well, that's good. Good.
And we'll just do last question because I know the presser is going to start very soon with Doug. It's Diwali, right, coming up.
Yeah.
And you know, obviously, it's a big.
It's a big holiday.
It is a big holiday.
A large, vibrant South Asian population who are very social, who love nothing better than to get together with large groups and their extended families and to celebrate. I've attended many Diwali events. I love, you know, the new sari and dressing up, and it feels so regal and it feels wonderful. And they're incredible people. Incredible people, stay home.
Let me ask this question. Is there going to be more enforcement this weekend?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
There's more enforcement, and you know, Mayor Brown and I are all over social media and doing the rounds of all the radio and TV stations that are, you know, South Asian stations to get the message out that please, you know, it's one thing after another, starting with the schools, return to work, Thanksgiving, Halloween, now Diwali, and then we'll have Hanukkah, Christmas, Kwanzaa. It's these big holidays. People are social beings. It's natural. We've been in lockdown a long time. Things were a little more lax in the summer when the numbers seemed to be under control. And now we're saying, oh, don't see your friends and extended families anymore. It's natural to want to get together, particularly for the bigger holidays. And it's natural to want to see your friends and extended family. We're social beings. We're asking, please don't. Please don't. Just do it with your immediate household. Limit your activities to your most necessary, and we know what those are, your work, school, better to work from home, going to the grocery store, gas, banking, and pharmacies. That's all you need to do. That's it. Stay home and interact with your immediate family and essential supports. That's it. You want to see anyone else? Everyone's got a computer, laptop, iPad, phone. Do it virtually, please. It's going to be tough for Diwali. I know. The South Asian community loves to get together. They love to. They have many wonderful events. I attend them all. In the past. I have attended them all in the past, I should say. But this is not the year to do it. Please. It will drive numbers. We'll see in 2 weeks. We'll be able to point and say it was Diwali that drove the numbers. And that's what I worry about. I saw that at Thanksgiving. You see it a little bit now because we know there were Halloween house parties, and we'll see it for Diwali. It's in the case numbers. The evidence is there.
Okay. Mayor
So
Crombie.
please, we will find you.
Okay. Mayor Crombie, thank you so much. And
thank you for having me. We'll be, I think, glued to our TVs in moments for the Premier's announcement, and lots of speculation that he'll put us into lockdown. I will say to you that I asked Dr. Lowe what the criteria would be to go into lockdown, and he says we're almost there. So whether the Premier's advisors are advising him that we are there, we will see in a few minutes. I think the important thing to realize, if a lockdown does occur, it would not be effective unless it was GTA wide, right? You can't have it in Peel region and not in Toronto, or Peel in Toronto but not in York, right? It has to be GTA wide, otherwise it just drives people to other communities.
You think that'll cover Halton and Hamilton as well?
I don't know for sure. Like, their numbers are bad. They're not as bad as ours on a per 100,000 basis, but they're not good either. They're growing. They're growing. So we'll see.
We'll discuss it on Tuesday when we chat on Tuesday.
Yeah, sorry about that this week. Yeah.
Oh no, I know you're busy.
It's things come up. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you, Khaled.
Bye.